welcome back to Room 237, and this is kind of a random review because this is a movie that I really hadn't planned on getting or seeing, but I happened to see it while I was out. It was only a few bucks, and it was something that I've kind of been interested in for not really a long time, but I noticed it was on Netflix for like the longest time. And then I was watching something on YouTube. I think it was like top 10 horror movies that really capture the Halloween feel and atmosphere or something like that. I believe this was on there, and I was like, that actually sounds pretty interesting. And then when I went back to Netflix, it wasn't on there. But it's something I've been wanting to see, and I happened to see it while it was out. It was like $5 or $6. That is 2007's Murder Party. Now, this is a film made by I guess you could call them a film troupe called Lab of Madness. Kind of like a Broken Lizard, or actually kind of even like Monty Python. Because this is a horror comedy. And actually, the way the video that I saw made it sound was, it was kind of going to be like a Rob Zombie's 31, like a sort of people trying to kill each other at this Halloween party, and then there's one left standing. It's not really like that at all. It's actually very different than that. Rob Zombie's 31, but better. But I still really enjoyed where this went. This movie is very funny. It does take the horror seriously. It's got plenty of blood and gore in it. But I'm also really fascinated by the Lab of Madness history. There's a nice feature on here called Extreme Truth, The Making of Murder Party, because it was directed by a guy named Jeremy Saulnier, who would go on to direct the Patrick Stewart film Green Room, which I did see. I don't know why I didn't review it, but I did see Green Room. I'll have to give that another watch sometime and do that. But when he was in the 6th grade, he would make films with Macon Blair and Chris Sharp. Chris Sharp is the star of the film, and Macon Blair is sort of like the bearded werewolf mask wearing one. Well, I think he had a hand in producing this as well. I know Chris Sharp did. And they would make like bloody action horror films back in like late 80s, early 90s. And then later on, they were met up with Sandy Barnett, Paul Goldblatt, and William Lacey. And all throughout high school, they would just make these movies together. And kind of like Monty Python, where like if their character got killed, they would like put a hat on and play a different character. And being the huge Monty Python fan I am, I love stuff like that. And then after high school, they all went to different film schools. I'm trying to say college for film, but film schools. They all went to different film schools, but stayed in touch with each other because their dream was to make a movie together. And they had a couple low-budget films that they had made that got into festivals. I think one was called something Crawl? Crab Walk. But they couldn't get any investors or any money, so they decided to make this themselves for less than $300,000, and it looks great. It really does. It looks better than most multi-million-dollar films that Hollywood puts out. And I think each member also had a hand in writing and producing. Other actors of the main cast were involved with either the film production or the stage production. So it's a very low budget, and everyone is um, utilized as much as possible. And I really like that. I really like when the filmmakers themselves are also on camera to get a project made. But it's also a movie where, it's a limited cast, a limited setting. It all pretty much takes place in this one warehouse. And it's pretty much just about this guy, and everyone has the same name except for Sandy Barnett, who has a character named Alex. But everyone else, Chris, Macon, Bill or William, Paul, they all have their same names. Sky, who's not a member of the group, I think. Wow. I think because I saw in the featurette, she was helping decorate the set. She was involved with the production. She's one of the main cast members. Stacy Rock, I think, is the one that plays Lexi. But for the most part, the guys from Lab of Madness all have the same names, except for Sandy Barnett. But Chris Sharp is this really like this lonely, really just sort of introverted, very vanilla, just kind of, people kind of walk all over him. He's not very assertive. He's a guy that just writes tickets all day. He gets this invitation to a murder party on Halloween night. I do wish I saved this for Halloween because this movie is up there with Trick or Treat as far as just one that oozes Halloween atmosphere. It really puts you in the spirit for Halloween. It's got that look, that feel. Not as much as Trick or Treat, but it is up there. But I still have plenty of anthology films that I didn't get to last Halloween, so I'll do that again this October. So he shows up, and I mean, he makes pumpkin bread out of a pumpkin that someone smashed on his doorstep. He brought something else too, but he makes this pumpkin bread. He makes a night suit out of cardboard. And when he shows up, there's these other people like Lexi, who's like this Harley Quinn. She wears like skin colored or a nude kind of spandex. It has like white face paint with a blue stripe. Got Macon, who's like he's a bearded guy with a hoodie, but he wears a werewolf mask. Bill, who every time I saw him he was in the thumbnail on Netflix, he just reminded me of Clockwork Orange. He's dressed as a baseball player with a black cap, but he's got this yellowish orange face paint with like a black frown, and like one eye has black around it. He's just kind of like the quiet, just not very involved guy. Like, he always has his PSP. Yep. Paul is dressed like a Victorian era vampire. Then Sky is a cheerleader. And he shows up, and they all decide to kill him as some sort of art project. And they're all artists in their own way. Like, Bill is a painter. I don't know what Macon does. Paul's a photographer. Lexi is an abstract filmmaker. And then by accident, Sky dies. They keep talking about this guy named Alexander who's going to show up, and eventually he does. And of course, he's all sharp looking. Whoever has the best art project, he's going to give them a grant and $300,000. So they all have these different ideas of how to kill him. And Sandy Barnett's character as Alexander really reminds me of Alan Ormsby from Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. Just this very cocky, overconfident, just not really verbally abusive, but very passive aggressive, as if everyone is beneath him. He has his new friend, Russian guy named Zyko, who I think he was one of the producers as well. He's played by Bill Tangradi. He then says that his body shouldn't be used for art. The act of killing should be the art. So he says they're gonna wait for the witching hour, and then they're gonna do this thing, like they're gonna cut him up. And while they're killing time, they play all these different Halloween games, like Zyko breaks out True Serum, like the sodium something. I gotta find out what it is now, because someone will say it in the comments just to make sure that we know that they know. Oh, Lexi is Pre from Blade Runner. I haven't seen Blade Runner in years. Oh, and Bill is Baseball Fury from the Warriors. Another movie I haven't seen since I was a kid, so totally forgot about that. Sodium Pentothal, that's what I thought it was, but he made it sound like something else. Where they play Extreme Truth or Dare. And it's kind of a slow movie. There's a lot of dialogue, which I do like. The characters are very rich. I mean, they're all very individual characters. You know, Lexi is very much like Harley Quinn on coke. Like, she just keeps doing coke all night. But she's very much just like this Harley Quinn kind of hyper character. Macon is like the alcohol drinking kind of dumbass. Paul, you get, is a kind of pretentious, but doesn't really have a lot to show for it. Not as pretentious as Alexander. But, you know, they're all great characters. They're all well written. So they play this Extreme Truth or Dare, and that's very funny. It starts out kind of small. At one point, you know, Paul is like, I can still lie. So, you know, someone asked me a question. Lexi says, we all know what your favorite food is. So what's your favorite food? And he's like, I'm bisexual. And Alexander has sex with both Lexi and Paul at this point. And eventually, like, and they all talk to Bill, the Baseball Fury, like he's this great artist. But he goes outside to tend to Alexander's dog, because Lexi put him outside because he was sniffing the cheerleader's body, or where they hit it. And when he comes in, he sees that Paul, Lexi, and Alexander are all laughing at his artwork. And that's kind of what makes him snap. Paul gets frustrated with Alexander and his treatment, so he injects him with a bunch of the sodium pentothal. And that's when he says he's a fry cook. He's not really an artist. He wants to kill all of them and then try to sell their art that they've been giving him for the last few months. And Bill kind of goes crazy and kills everyone except Macon, who's in love with Lexi, but she keeps blowing him off. He's been dumping alcohol all over himself all night, just out of frustration. So he puts his werewolf mask on, goes outside to have a cigarette, and when he goes to light it, he's burst into flames. And then just this funny sequence where, you know, Lexi goes to get the fire extinguisher, but it doesn't work, so she goes inside to get another one. And it finally gets put out, and the makeup looks great. And I mean, still, practical effects, less than $300,000. Look how cheap it was. And It looks awesome. There's even a scene where practical effects and CGI are mixed, and it still looks good. But so like the nose is melted to his face. The rest is all just like melted red skin. His eyes like really big and red. He has a thing for this chainsaw that he calls Old Painless. But he keeps carrying it around with an extension cord because he's hell-bent on using it. Once Bill starts killing everyone, Alexander goes to leave, but his dog ate a bag full of coke. Get the idea? It attacked him and ate his lips. And Bill kills him. And then the whole third act is Bill chasing Chris. He's able to get free and he chases him. But Macon is chasing Bill because he killed Lexi. And it happens very fast. Like, he kills almost everyone with an axe to the head. But there's like a humorous death when Alexander has Zyko shoot Paul for like questioning him. He has to shoot him in the head like 3 times or 4 times because every time he gets shot, he's just like, blood's coming out. He's like, what the hell? Why would you do that? You just keep shooting him, and he goes down more, but he keeps talking. So it is a very over-the-top movie, but it's always fun. It's always entertaining. There was one really like Monty Python-esque gag that really got me. Because Chris is able to, he's tied to a chair first, and he's able to get free, so they're all chasing him. And he ends up in this closet, and he's looking around for stuff to use as protection. And then, so they're all standing outside the door, and it bursts open, and he has like, it looks like a vacuum tube, and like a funnel or something, like just a bunch of things, and he looks like he's made this concoction of a weapon, and he just goes, it all hits the floor, they all look at it, and then he runs away. It's like silent. To me, that's probably the funniest part of the movie. Just, it reminded me of a Python bit so much. But they get him, then they chain him back to the chair. The rest of the movie happens. And I mean, Bill, who's been so quiet the whole movie, just playing his PSP, not responding to anything. He's now running around like, everybody dies. Chases him to the rooftop. They go to this rooftop party. They go to this bar. Which there's another scene where Bill just orders a drink and he's kind of scanning the room. Then he sees where Chris is and chugs it, and then he starts going all over again. Then they end up in like this penthouse where there's this art show going on with this guy that was mentioned earlier. Chris hides in like this performance art room. Then when Bill shows up, the guy's like, Bill, you're here. Wow. You are great. You are good. You really should have your own exhibit. He's like, oh, is Alexander coming tonight? And then that's kind of what makes him snap again. Goes into the room where Chris is. Kills all the people posing with body paint. And the exhibit is just called art with the question mark. It's like, no, it's not. At least I don't think it is. And like by this point, Macon has got to the party on the rooftop, and he finds an extension cord, but he like falls off the roof, and the chainsaw lands like right in front of the window. So Chris is able to get it, and he gets Bill like right here. Again, great effects. I mean, he's screaming as it's like cutting into him, and the chain is CGI. So they had to CGI the activity of the chainsaw, but all the blood and everything is practical. Looks awesome. And then Chris just goes home and sits on his chair and eats candy corn. I guess the character development we get is that, like, in the beginning, when he's contemplating on going to the party, he makes a bowl of candy corn. He pops in a horror movie. He wants to sit in his chair, and his cat, Sir Lancelot, is in it. He's like, Sir Lancelot, you move, please. And the cat just looks at him. He's like, fine. He sits on the couch. But this time, covered in blood, still wearing his cardboard knight outfit. He asks the cat to move. He just keeps staring at the cat. And then the cat leaves. Then he sits down, eats candy corn, and then it's over. I just really enjoyed this movie. I know a lot of people don't like horror comedies because they don't like... Either they don't like horror being made fun of, or they don't like horror to be light, or, you know, if it's going to be like a gory, sort of slashery type movie, they'd rather be as brutal and dark and fucked up as possible, so they don't want any humor. But if the humor is well done, and a lot of times the humor is not mixed with the horror. You know, I think one of the best examples is Hatchet. You know, the first 45 minutes of Hatchet is like a comedy. It's like a sex comedy. And then it becomes this bloody, gory slasher film with a couple jokes in between each kill. You know, I think that's fine. It's kind of like the cops on the original Last House on the Left. Yeah, it's dumb. Yeah, it's silly. Yeah, it's out of place. But it's separate from everything else that's going on. So it's just a few isolated moments that don't work. But here, I think, you know, if the humor can still be dark, or if the horror can be done both in a seriously scary way, but also in a humorous way, I think it can work. I mean, the 80s had the best horror comedies. Like, not comedy horror like Zombieland or Shaun of the Dead, but horror comedy like, you know, Reanimator or Return of the Living Dead, or in the early 90s with Dead Alive, Bad Taste in 87, you know. You can have horror comedies, and this is one that I think works. I thought it was funny. It has plenty of gore in it, plenty of blood. Great characters. I love the limited set in this warehouse. I loved the characters. I loved the dialogue and just how the characters and plot, you know, just unfolds as the night goes on. And just a really entertaining movie, very fun. I know there's a Murder Party 2. That's something if I find on YouTube or streaming, then I'll check it out. But, you know, I really had fun with this. And this is something I can see myself rewatching like every Halloween with like Trick or Treat or the original Halloween. Just has that wonderful getting in the Halloween spirit atmosphere. I really enjoyed Murder Party. But thank you for watching.